because I really did everything right.
I was actually going to say, or maybe it was just me not paying attention, but you blew your own trumpet, so you know what I mean? I've been watching and this is no kind of blowing smoke up your backside. I've been watching your interviews on boxing for a long, long time. You are self-proclaimed, but I do believe it to be true, the pioneer of the online boxing journalism.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is self-proclaimed as it. I accept the truth of the history of this
of boxing journalism online.
That's what it is, right? I'm not the first to say it, but I'm not going to reject it as false humility. So,
yeah, like it.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if George Washington is the self-proclaimed first president of the United States or if that's just what it is.
So, okay, we'll accept it is what it is. No, joking aside, I didn't know until I interviewed you. So, for reference, I interviewed you about a month ago, Usyk, Dubois, one of those kind of days leading up to that. And I actually didn't know that. I'm going to be honest. I did not know until I've obviously since done some research. And I recognise greatness.
Oh,
I now recognise. I just thought you were some random.
But hold on.
No,
but hold on. Let me ask you this: before you interviewed me for the first time,
no, I did some research. I did some research.
But you didn't know that.
Do you know what
the gravity of my standing and the title with which you had engaged.
I should have addressed you with.
No idea. And now that you've come here to my dwellings in the South, you realize that you sat with royalty. Well, the gravity and nature of our engagement increased significantly, exponentially, dare I say.
I have to admit it.
Date, research.
Oh! Research. I have to admit, that piece of information passed me by. And I thought, and I think it's fair to say that a lot of people thought that your man from IFL TV was the face of online boxing. But I realised that, didn't you give him a break? Didn't you give him a break? Or
give him a break? No.
He's on your channel.
What do you mean? What do you mean by give him a break?
But give him a break as in a helping hand, because some of his early interviews are on your channel.
Well, okay. I think the clarification is yes, maybe Seconds Out as a channel worked with Koogan before I came on board. I started with Max Boxing in America. And by the time I partnered up and merged Max Boxing with Seconds Out, I think their engagement with Koogan had come and passed. So I didn't have anything to do with that.
Oh, okay.
And for these British boxing fans, as for covering British boxing, it probably is Koogan. I don't know anyone who's preceded him here. But I'm talking about the very genre of journalism that he is doing and began to do here for British boxing. I began globally. So he's the first to do it here, but I had been doing it 10 years prior in America and the first to do it anywhere. So I'm not taking anything from Koogan or saying that I just certainly didn't give him any breaks whatsoever. He did his thing, but his thing was patterned on my thing.
Yeah.
As everybody else who does this is patterned on something that I began. That's a fact.
It's something, like I say, the history of this, what I'm doing now, I did not know until our conversation that you were the pioneer. And I'm joking aside, I didn't know. And so obviously I wanted to interview you to get to know you a bit better. You're from California, aren't you?
Yes.
So you started your kind of journey into journalism from a child, did you not?
I did. In high school in Northern California, I started doing an after-school radio show on my high school campus. And it wasn't sports narrowly focused. It was more headline news. Of course, I would talk sports, more like what was happening with campus and high school sports. But my thrust at the time, at 16, was really what was happening in the headlines and social interaction between different communities, and I would have more of a talk show kind of structure, and I'd play music, and then so I was doing all of those things, and it was discussion that was my passion, and it wasn't boxing or
Mm.
discussion of boxing at that time that was driving me, but it is where I originally started to fashion my broadcasting voice and skill as a conversationalist about important topics and be able to discuss things that were sometimes uncomfortable in a public forum.
Were you not 14, 15? And who helps you set up? Set up the kind of space, finds the space, who gave you that kind of, I don't know, seed of this is possible?
I was incredibly fortunate to have a mother who
Mhm.
really instilled in me that anything was possible. And while it is still yet to be proven whether or not anything is possible, I've certainly lived my life by that theory, and I keep testing it. And I keep trying new shit and seeing, well, is this possible too? And so far, it has proven to be true that anything that I apply myself to, am disciplined
Mm.
about, am diligent and consistent, I'm honest with myself about where I'm at and how much effort I'm putting in it and what I'm getting out of it based on that effort has been possible. I have been able to attain that which I gave the proper investment in. And it's not, if I didn't get out of it what I wanted, it wasn't because it was impossible. It was because I didn't put into it what was necessary to get out what I wanted. That has proven to be true thus far. And I would say that alone is the most succinct answer to your question. Now, the details of it are a bit more expansive, right? I went to a performing arts high school, so
No.
I was fortunate that they had a radio station in the basement. They had a radio tower on top of the school that gave us like a 5-mile radius broadcast, and there was no broadcast happening until I petitioned the faculty to see if I could use the radio station, which was dormant at the time, but I discovered was still functional. And if I hadn't been at a school that had that capability, would I have still began a radio show or had the opportunity to do that at that age? Probably not. I don't know if that I would have known where to go or seeked it out. In that way, that was just a fortunate circumstance that I was in that I was able to take advantage of. And then I think being an only child, raised by a single mother, a latchkey kid, having so much time to figure out how to entertain myself, and when I was growing up, we weren't yet in the digital age of social media and video phones. So to see or hear yourself on camera was quite uncommon.
Mhm.
And I remember distinctly at a very young age, but yet for the first time, hearing my own voice played back to me. And I was mortified. It was absolutely gutting
Yep.
that I could possibly sound like this to other people. Like, there's got to be something wrong with the machine.
Mm.
This can't be me. It's not what I hear. And I began to listen to terrestrial radio DJs, you know, spinning records and dedicating songs and taking calls and doing contests, and their voices that were much more attractive to me than mine and had some charm and
Mm.
power in them, and started calling radio stations kind of incessantly, playing along with these games and dedicating songs and chatting with the dude so I could then hear my voice come through the speaker, hear it come play back. And I think I developed at a very, very young and impressionable age a voice for myself that I enjoyed hearing. And now I love nothing more than the sound of my own voice.
I knew that's where it was going. I knew.
I don't know to this day whether or not this is my actual voice. Have I suppressed the true inflections and tone of what my voice would have otherwise naturally been and replaced it with this creation that I quite enjoy?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's the same as when an actor would take voice lessons and, to.
Yeah, but it's like a British actor,
Mhm.
or I should say an American actor who does a British role, and they do
Mm.
it fantastically, and they sound British, and they
Not.
do a British show.
Mm.
And then it's like you go back to America, and you start doing interviews, and you have a British accent. Am I that person? Am I Madonna?
You You could well be.
What has happened?
But I really wanted to go back to the point that you were saying about your mother and how she instilled in you that you can do anything. And that is something that I heard from my great aunts. But there is, I can't remember which comedian that said, we need to teach our black children that not everything is possible. On the one hand, it's a great thing that your mum instilled that in you, but has that really been the reality? And on the flip side, we have a mindset, I think, as black people that we have barriers in front of us. How have you overcome that? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask.
I do think that is inherently true, that everything is possible. And because it's not accessible at the moment, doesn't mean it's not possible. Things evolve, they change. You can change them. And the world around you will also change without your influence. And things will open up to you that may not have been a visible path previous to that. So as the world evolves, reality changes, your perception of it changes, your access to it changes, and then recognizing your power over your own plight also expands. Hopefully, you realize just how much control you do have and how many things are available to start the dominoes falling to the thing at the end that might have been impossible at some stage in your mind. So yeah, everything is possible. It may just not be accessible right now. And now you have to create a path to possibility from your level of access.
Is that an American way of thinking? It just struck me because, like I say, for certain people in our community, they see a barrier as a reason not to, try and follow a certain path. It seems to me from what you're saying from a very young age that you kind of had that mentality of like, okay, well, yeah, certain things do exist, but I'm still not gonna I'm not gonna let that affect me, and I will find a way. I will find that open door.
You're not wrong. That is a very American mindset. And I believe it strikes different Americans for different reasons, but we come to the same conclusion that we got to do what we got to do to get what we want, and we can get anything that we want. That is a very different, I think, resident mindset than what you might find in the United Kingdom. That is a distinctly American mindset. And I think it is born out of the culture of American exceptionalism and the idea that we can, as Americans, do anything anywhere, which, every mindset has its pros and cons. There's a great benefit, I think, to just being raised in a culture that does believe that you can achieve and you should and you have to, because there's not any ongoing support system for you as an individual, that we celebrate winners and there's no second place and there's no participation trophies and you got to be number one and America's number one and that's part of being an American. All that stuff, while it can have some detrimental effect on your empathy or your ability to accept defeat and then carry forward into success and having the ability to understand that every single thing's not going to be a win. Sometimes that can be a part of the mentality that is detrimental. However, the difference between that American mindset and what I would find in the United Kingdom is that where we as Black people in America will be faced with a racial dynamic. Most of us recognize that as racism, which we view as a hindrance and a hurdle that we have to clear that is higher than that of our white counterparts to achieve. That is how most of us feel. Nothing's a monolith. You'll find Black people that would disagree with that, but I do believe that is the lion's share of what we accept as our immediate and initial challenge that we have to overcome. And as you overcome those hurdles and you are better than your counterparts to get the exact same reward or even lesser money or lesser opportunity, and you strive through that adversity, then you become more resilient and less accepting that you are lesser or that there's something that's impossible, because you're at an early age clearing hurdles and having to be better just to get equal access or equal pay or equal acknowledgement. Here, there's a class system that I think is born out of this nature, this culture of royalty, this tradition,
Mm.
bloodline, and where you are in life is where you're born and where you'll stay and where you're meant to be. What's available to you based on in which class you're born is all that should be available to you. All that you should desire. You shouldn't even desire to live or ascend outside of this class system. I think
Mm.
that's a different kind of mental hurdle. I find that it's more accepted here amongst British people that their class is what they are meant to exist in for the rest of their lives, and that to aspire to something better than what their birthright dictates is embarrassing or is off-putting, like someone who thinks or wants to be more than what they're born as is offensive, and they don't want to be that. So yeah, I think people encounter, and I'm not just talking black people. I mean, I believe that is kind of baked in the culture of the United Kingdom, or at least what I've seen when people talk freely, white, black, whatever. It's just how people think here, and it is different than how people think in America.
100%. I think we're always, and it is ingrained. I believe it is ingrained because we always were kind of taught not to blow our own trumpets, not to be too pushy, not to, think, too highly above the ceiling, all of that stuff. And it's been, unless you are from a family that, kind of have that positive mindset, and it was most definitely my aunties that live in America that had that mindset of you can do anything. But yes, you're absolutely right. It is ingrained. I wanted to go back to when you were talking about your voice and sort of phoning in and trying to sort of hear your voice. Your name, Radio Rahim, does that come from the character in the Spike Lee film?
No, I think it comes from, first of all, it wasn't really something that I chose. It was more of a way to be teased by those who thought that I spoke differently than I was raised to speak as a black boy.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It would probably be something as, how one might find themselves behind the gates of Buckingham Palace inside a family that thinks that she should be speaking, but that's a conversation for another
day.
I don't believe that most people know really the origin. And you would assume that that movie, being an American movie, a smash hit, I love that character, and I won't say that it has nothing to do with it. I mean, it helps me find the legacy in it when some people, I know that name, and nowadays we're quite a distance from that movie. Nowadays, when they say, "Oh, I know that name," most of the time they're talking about me, but sometimes they're still talking about the movie character, and that doesn't bother me at all. As long as you remember the name, I'm the only one that's still doing, doing work, and that is such an iconic film and an iconic character. I'm happy to be associated with it. However, I think the reason that that moniker was laid upon me early days was because I sounded like somebody on the radio, and now you know why, because I absolutely spent hours making sure of it, and it was meant as a derogatory nickname. And so those who would bully me with it or tease me with it quite enjoyed it, as long as it was bothering me. And at some stage, I decided to embrace it, and I would simply find pride in it and power in it, call myself that. And now everybody remembers that name. And you know what? For the life of me, I cannot remember the name of the boys who teased me with it.
Yeah, and where are they now? Yeah, where are they now? Where are they now? A lot of the interviews that I've seen, and of course we know that we know you from boxing, but there's other stuff that you do. It feels to me like, and especially and we'll get onto that in a moment, the documentary that you did on the Congo, it's kind of littered throughout your work, references to black culture, and it feels a little bit to me, and again, I'm saying this from a British point of view, and it's probably maybe not the same for you, but as a black media person, sort of having your foot in each camp can be quite difficult. And I wondered if that was a conscious decision to kind of subtly reference black culture.
I don't put those barriers on myself. I believe that my feet are firmly planted 10 toes down right below my shoulders. And whatever I'm carrying, they are meant to support. Wherever I step foot, I am home. So I am comfortable in any corner of the world. I've enjoyed United Kingdom and the culture here and the communities here. I found a corner of this London that most speaks to me, and I'm quite at home when I'm here. And when I'm in any other part of the world, I will find what it is about that place that speaks to me where I'm comfortable. And then I will go and find places where I'm uncomfortable just to better understand how other people in that community or in that state or country are experiencing life. That is part of my curiosity. And sometimes I'll find things in places where I'm initially uncomfortable that make me comfortable. And I can find some things that I relate to about that community and those people and take that with me. It's part of my life's work and in my decided journey. So when I speak about or show elements of black culture anywhere in the world and make it public, it is because there's something about it that's in me. And it's really just an expression of myself. So whatever I put forward has something to do with something that speaks to me in it. And while you might be looking at a documentary from Ghana, even, there's something in that that is a part of me that I'm putting forward, and whatever else is in it is a part of what I experience that I want you to have some experience with or some acknowledgement of. And when I was just most recently in Congo, what I was told about the country and, a lot of what is true about the country that I didn't experience is all part of me learning how different people are experiencing the world in different places and the difference between what you'll be told about something, what you're meant to feel about it, what no one tells you, and then what you experience when you're there for yourself.
And you went to the Congo recently, and
A profound experience. It was my first time in Congo, and again, the way it was perceived around the world as the unrest there, which is real. It's not as if it doesn't exist, but there is a lot happening there that isn't part of the unrest. And because there has been peace made in the moment with Rwanda and the fact that I was on a part of the country, Nick, in Kinshasa, where it wasn't where the hot war was or where the major conflict was happening, then, it was something that people should see for themselves. And I knew that the idea that people would go, especially after what I was told before I went, was unlikely. So I wanted to show them what I saw and be honest about it. I wasn't uh, creating or curating an image that is dishonest about what
yes,
I experienced. That is what I saw. I was there because we're embarking on the 51st anniversary, really, of the Rumble in the Jungle, having been in Zaire at the time it was named Zaire in 1974, October 30th. The country and Dio Kasongo is putting on an event to honor that anniversary and put a fight on in the exact same arena where the original fight took place. And in November of last year, the Ali family and the Foreman family, George included, came together in Houston to announce that renovation would begin on what would be named the Ali Foreman Stadium. So they christened the Ali Foreman Stadium as the new name of that stadium, and they began to renovate the space so that it could host a fight again. And now we're at the end of that renovation. The name and the groundbreaking will happen in October. Soon they'll even have a music festival in the country, same weekend, in fact, as Canelo Crawford. And it is not unlike the music festival that happened before the original Rumble in the Jungle. So I wanted to go there, lend my support, do what I could to move it forward and to show people around the world what it is that I experienced. I had an incredible time. I saw the culture of that country in a way that was beautiful. I saw it from the highest and upper echelons of government and beautiful uh, facilities, and met with the highest level of government ministers there, and enjoyed fine dining, French
Mm.
and Italian, and as a local at very nice, beautiful restaurants. And I also went to the more village areas and the beach communities, and where the more common experience was being had. I made sure that I had an experience from both ends of the
Yeah.
spectrum. And I am aware that there are elements that I simply couldn't see in 1 week's time, but I spent, you know, 8 days there to make sure that I had enough of a firsthand account that was comprehensive of what a visit might be like, so that I could honestly speak about what
Mhm.
it would be if someone else were to go. And I can tell you that it's an eye opener. It is emotional. It is the kind of experience that you want to have. You will make it that. If you want to have a luxury 5-star experience, that's available there. If you want to go into the villages and the communities where people are selling their wares in the marketplaces and weaving their fabrics and selling fruit on the streets, you can have that experience as well. If you do want to go to the Congolese River and kind of party with the DJs and have your fruit drinks and foods off the grill and put your feet in the river while you sit at the table and eat, you can have that experience as well. If you want to hop on a motorcycle and ride through downtown and go through the community yourself, sometimes 3, 4 deep on one motorcycle, if that's what you're into, you can have that experience as well. It's all there for you, and it's all available based on whatever it is that moves you and how you want to perceive this country. I was surprised by just how much the people there were happy to see me, how welcoming they were, how accommodating they were, how safe it was, how easily I could move around in those different spaces depending on what it is that I wanted to do. And then the best, most cherished gift was this video that I was able to put together that will live forever, as to being able to archive the experience and share it with others. That's what I wanna do every place I go. I did this every place I go. If I have that opportunity to archive it and share it, I'll do that. But even on the occasions when I don't, I always make sure that my experience is as comprehensive as it can be.
And when you talk about that experience and being able to share, because it struck me when I was watching it that the narrative about the country in '74 hasn't really changed. The same narrative that they're kind of spinning. And one of the things I recall from the time is they made what made news was, I think, what you would call the hood people. They would round them up and they would, stick them in jail because it was such a dangerous country, etc. So though,
Mm.
and it seems to me that the narrative hasn't changed. When you were standing in the training room, uh, and then you said it, actually, this is what you said, but I thought it was like you said, you cannot feel what I feel without standing where I stand. Describe that feeling to us.
I hope I did a good job of describing it in the video because I was in the moment, but it is as if you stand on hallowed ground and you feel the
Mm,
energy of what once took place in that space. And then you're confronted with the visual that looks so vacant, looks so uh, absent of energy, yet you feel the presence of what once was. That is a pull of your senses, and then a tug on your energy that seems to be at odds with each other. And then you accept it and realize that, oh, the vacancy of the space is because there's space for me to create. And the energy I feel is really being propelled into creating something new in this space that you can connect back to the original energy, or make something fresh and is your own, but will still be connected back to the original energy because you're in that same original space. So what I found was that energy was propelling me to fill the space. And when I didn't
mm,
see the space then as empty or vacuous, and devoid of energy, but yet there to receive the energy I put into that space, I realized the moment I was in. If you've had a moment like that somewhere, then you know what it feels like. And if you haven't, then you got to go somewhere where that
Mm.
energy exists and fill that space with your own.
Were you surprised, though, that that space, given, you know, where it sits in not just the history of boxing, but also of the country, that that space is not being utilised? I know you said that they're going to start utilising it, but hasn't been utilised for many, many decades. Did that surprise you?
Someone has to come along that recognizes the importance of bringing it back to life.
Mm.
And I hope that I did a little work in expressing to people just how valuable the experience is. If you're in the space, it brings it to life for you personally. I can only do so much in telling you a story. If you can find yourself on the pages of the very same storybook that I'm trying to express to you, you can go right there where I was. And because Dio Kasongo and the government of the Congo, the sports minister there, has made it a priority to bring to life the history of those buildings, have an event that celebrates the anniversary of the original Rumble in the Jungle. I believe that more and more people will find their way to this place and experience not only what once was, but really the value that the current custodians of the property are putting into it. That's what's important. And that's what connects a modern generation to a past one.
Mm.
The modern generation has to see the value of what the past one did. You have to express a honest and genuine desire to want that to be maintained so it's not lost to the annals of history for future generations. And that's what's happening now. That's what I'm a part of. That is what motivated me to not only go there against the warnings of so many and the somewhat propaganda of
Mm.
the mass media, and even the truth of what challenges the country does face, go right into the heart of it and experience it for myself, and then be a part of the rebuilding of history and the making available to another generation history to be made.
Yeah, just in terms of legacy, yeah, I am surprised that the space hasn't been utilised. And one of the reasons why I was surprised, in Congo, there is such an abundance of boxing talent. But just like in the West Indies, and I'm guessing it's the same, but in the West Indies, a lot of the time, what stops people progressing in the sport is finance. I was talking to Nigerian boxer Elizabeth Oshoba recently, and she was saying the same thing, but also that one of the reasons is that it's kind of looked down, the sport is looked down on. And what was your experience? Do Congolese people look down on the sport? I think she used the word street urchins. There seems to be kind of a negative connotation.
Not at all. That's certainly not something I experienced. In fact, they're quite proud of the history of that particular fight there. And there are still people who were children at the time who attended the fight and who remembered what it was like to have all those celebrities and um, tourists and so many people's attention on their country and how it changed the trajectory of some of their lives, the amount of money that their parents were able to make because they were selling food or creating art or working in the venue or had some iconic moment with one of those giants in the sport, were able to encounter people from all over the world and take advantage of that connection so many different ways. It affected the lives of a whole generation of Congolese, and they're proud of it. And they see boxing as a part of their own legacy as a country. So, no, I don't see anything that would say that there was anything but admiration for boxing and a passion to bring it back and make Congo a destination for the sport.
But surely that must start at the kind of grassroots level, the amateur level, an area that I've come from, because there is an abundance of talent, and it's just from a coach's point of view, it's frustrating to see. Yeah, it's just
You need to have the support of the governments in Africa, these respective nations, to effectively provide facilities and proper equipment, to pay trainers, to keep a fervent youth inspired to want to be boxers and to see a future in it and a potential reward that could change the trajectory of their lives by being successful at it. You certainly need that. And you need the government to consistently support it so that you can find those talents that will one day be world champions, those Olympians that are in the villages, that are in these communities that need to be drawn out, that can compete on the world stage with proper training. That's absolutely true. And that's true of every nation I've been to, and these African nations in particular, that the government needs to get behind it, need to make sure that they have what they need to train. The trainers need to be properly funded and compensated for their time and energy so that they can give 100% to the talent and these athletes and create systems so that you can find out who's got the talent and you can hone those skills when you find dedicated athletes. That's absolutely true. And it needs to be done in all these nations on the continent to have aspiring athletes. And I think each and every one of them do have that. Obviously, there's other things going on in the countries at different times, respective of which nation we're talking about. There may be different focuses on the government, and it's important that people like you and myself remind them of the value of athletes being born out and properly trained and giving opportunity in whatever nation that you're in, that road has to be available. It enriches the country in ways that you can't even describe. And then when you see it, you realize just how much value you got for dollar.
I think one of the key words was consistency.
For sure.
Because something that I do see is that usually those avenues as an amateur in, the African continent and in the West Indies is usually about money. And what I mean by that is the participants that go usually get sponsored by mother, brothers, neighbors, etc.
When one of these stars makes it through, the amount of pride for the whole country, then the government can't wait to step in front of it and take credit and want you to wear the flag and mention the president, and they want to come to the fight and they want to be a part of the success. Well, to do that, you need to farm that success, water those seeds, create soil where it can grow, and then you got a right to have that level of pride and ownership over these athletes that come through and become global successes, names that can carry an entire country's pride on their back. That's what it comes from. And you have to remind yourself of how valuable that is and what that means to the entire citizenry of your nation when it happens, that it's well worth investing in.
Yeah. Beautifully put. I do want to say one thing. The guy, you said that you met some guys that actually were at the fight, at the Foreman and Ali fight. Yeah. Do you know what made me laugh when the guy said it? I was like, you're a liar, because he looked about 40.
78.
You know which one I'm talking about. I was like, my man looks good.
78, this one.
Wow.
Yeah, because he was like, he was like an adult.
I know when he said it, I was like, I know.
Did the same thing. Off camera, I was like, how old is this guy?
When you just like, I thought it was one of them moments when, when everyone probably just goes, oh yeah, I was there, I met him. I was just like, all right, babes, yeah, all right. But
listen, let me tell you what, that skin out there.
I
don't know how they do it, but they do it. And they look beautiful. These people are gorgeous. They're not, you know what I mean? They're not getting no fillers. They're not getting no lip enhancements. They're not going under the knife. I don't know what is happening around the rest of the world, but I'll tell you what's happening in Africa. Sheer natural beauty.
Natural beauty and good food, home-cooked food. They're still on that home-cooked food. That's why.
That's right. That's right.
So describe your most memorable ringside experience.
Well, probably actually it would be Jake Paul not Jake Paul, but Logan Paul and KSI, which you may not know, depending on how much research you did for the second date. Maybe this was the third date research. I hosted Logan Paul versus KSI
Oh, I
in
know.
Los Angeles. Fight that I brought to Barrett DAZN and campaigned for them to do and was at the center of. And obviously, I'm a Californian. I lived most of my life in LA, so to be at the Staples Center where the Lakers play and it was a packed house, that would be my most memorable single night ringside, as I was so central to what was happening.
That was a second date research
Well,
for me.
what do you what when you put that question together, what did you think the answer might be?
I don't know. One thing, I don't know, being at Usyk Fury in Riyadh.
What
The first, what?
Why would
'cause it
that
was,
be special for me?
well, I don't know. It was special for me. I don't know. Maybe I was projecting. Maybe I was projecting.
Because I would think that maybe being that I was at the center of Jake Paul, which I almost just said Jake Paul and Tommy Fury in Riyadh, that would probably be the most significant Riyadh fight for me.
What, over Usyk Fury?
I hosted the fight.
Are you mad?
Over Usyk Fury, I hosted Tommy Fury and Jake Paul.
So basically, because it was all about you.
Yeah, we're talking about me.
Yeah.
What is that? Is Usyk Fury supposed to be the best or most memorable because you enjoyed it?
No,
I wasn't even wildly impressed by that fight. It wasn't even like one of the best fights I've seen. A much better fight to me than that was Fury Wilder 3. That was a better heavyweight fight than Fury Usyk.
For what reason? Okay, for what reason? I'm speechless. I'm speechless. But go on. For what? For
it was so much more exciting. 5 knockdowns. Fight could have went either way at any one of those knockdowns at any stage. No one expected. I won't say no one, but it was not expected that Wilder would mount that type of resistance after he had been really easily knocked out in the second fight. It was a hell of a fight, and it was exciting from bell to final bell. And it ended in a knockout ultimately. How are you even comparing the two?
Just your enthusiasm. Listen, maybe I was looking at it from a technical point of view.
Yeah, technically, it's not my point of view.
It is. It's not all about the knockdowns and knockouts, you know. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
It totally is.
I wanted to just go back just slightly to the kind of the beginning of of your career as a journalist in boxing. And I think I recall you saying that one of the first people that you interviewed was Manny Pacquiao. And
not one of the first people I interviewed. One of the first people to interview him at Wildcard when he started training with Freddie Roach. So it was early in his career.
Okay. Yes, I understand.
I was one of the first people to interview him in that scenario, which is now the hallmark of his entire career, his union with Freddie Roach at Wildcard Boxing Gym. So he was staying at the Vagabond Hotel, aptly named, which was right next door to the gym, in a single room with 8 of his Filipino best friends, I suppose. And we did the interview on a air conditioner that protruded from the wall, sitting on top of that. And it was really the beginning of quite the journey for both of us. Obviously, me covering his career from that point forward, and obviously, the Hall of Fame he subsequently had as a fighter. So, yeah. And then I found out when I went to Macau, as he faced Brandon Rios, that I was famous in China and the Philippines because they were taking those interviews off the internet and putting them on DVD and selling them like movies in the street. And so I didn't understand how these Chinese fans and so many people were like recognizing me. And then they're asking me to sign these DVDs, which is how I was like, what is this? And so that's how they were following Pacquiao's career. A lot of these people were through these DVDs that were being sold like movies. And so that was really an eye-opening moment, a humbling moment. One of those things like you just don't know where this stuff is going or how it's affecting people that you might never imagine it was having an effect on.
Firstly, were you getting a cut?
It was like they sell movies in the
Pirates.
parking lot. No, I'm not getting it. But what I was getting was a fan base that you can't buy.
When you first interviewed him, and they say this about coaches, that we kind of know when someone's a bit special. Did you have an inkling that Pacquiao was a bit special?
Not to be cheeky about it, but at that level, I think everybody's a bit special. The question is, do they have what it takes to beat the other special people?
Mm.
And Pacquiao was an evolving talent. You know, at that time, he was a one-handed fighter. He was unorthodox in every way and difficult to figure out. But, you know, it wasn't for sure that he was going to be able to do certainly not what he did or even half of what he did. It was the proof needed to be in the pudding, and we needed to put it to the test. And it was up to Freddie Roach to make him a two-handed fighter and to figure out his awkward and unique style and how he could be successful against the champions of the day. So, yeah, of course he was special, but was he a Hall of Famer? We don't know. And that journey is what made the experience special.
I look back at some of the early interviews that you did, and I'm just, I am actually quite in awe of that whole going into a gym and being accepted, because I don't think it is easy as a, don't take this the wrong way, but a non-boxing person, someone that hasn't come from competing in the sport, to go in that environment and be accepted. And in your words, you obviously got that fan base from China.
Well, that's not how they met me, though. I didn't walk into the gym with a camera. I started training boxing in 5th grade. And I started at Wildcard boxing, again, not for competition. I never thought that I had an aspiration to compete. I just love boxing and the training of it and sparring people I know. But it's just, for me, it was a way of life. And I believe it is that whether you compete or not, if you dedicate to it. And that's what I was. I was dedicated to it. But I knew that my profession wouldn't be with gloves on. And when I started filming, it wasn't because I was aspiring to a career in sports journalism. In fact, I was aspiring to a career as a cameraman to shoot my own films. And I wanted to operate as I directed those films. So I started shooting sparring sessions so that I could learn to shoot live action and control shadows and lighting. And so sparring film was just a exercise for me as a filmmaker, not as a sports journalist. You know, so sometimes life happens when you have other plans. And that's how boxing became my life as a profession while I was making other plans.
I didn't know that you were involved in kind of recreational, what we would call here recreational boxing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, for sure. I still box in the gym.
Okay.
There's never been a time when boxing as a way of staying in condition physically and mentally the community wasn't a major part of my life. So when they accepted that I was doing interviews and stuff, it was because they were present for the evolution.
Yeah.
You know?
Does have a different, for you being in that environment and absorbing it, you will have a different take to somebody that, in my opinion, just in my humble opinion.
Sure, I think of myself as much of a boxing community, a part of the boxing community, or certainly at that time a part of that gym community as any fighter. Not that I'm a fighter, but people have their different roles. There's cutmen, there's trainers, there's, pad men, there's water guys, there's all type, there's all different ways that you become a part of that community. There's more jobs or roles, I guess it could say, in a boxing community than the fighter. I don't, imagine myself to be the same as a fighter or to know what a fighter knows inherently as being a fighter, but I have been in the environment and known the fighters and had my role in the community long enough and have gone to the lengths to understand to the depths that I could possibly go what a fighter is experiencing and what that life is like. And then the bits that you can only know by being a fighter, I asked them.
One of the things I have noticed about you, and again, I don't know if it's an American thing, I don't know whether it's... So many people do not want to upset individuals in the sport by asking certain questions. There was an interview that you did with Edwin Rodriguez when he fought Andre Ward, and he'd made a point of, I think, ahead of the fight, talking about making weight, and I won't go into things that he was alluding to, and then he did not make weight, and you asked him the question as to, why, and not only why did he not make the weight, but the fact that he had been pressing the other athlete and then he had not made weight. And I think the question that I'm trying to ask you is, how do you... I mean, obviously there has to be like a fluidity in an interview, etc. But you really seem to stick to that question because you were not getting an answer, or he kind of went around the houses and then eventually he answered it. How does one do that, I guess?
It's a delicate dance. I won't lie to you. I don't remember that specific interview, but I know that dance well. And it is the goal of the interviewer, myself, to get the answer. And so if you are too aggressive and they shut down on you, well, you're not getting the answer. And if you're too soft, you let them dance around and, misdirect you, you're not getting the answer. And if it is important enough to ask the question, then that means you deem it important enough for the question to be answered. Now, sometimes a non-answer is an answer. And you can realize that is the case. Most of the time, it's not. And it's up to you as a journalist how hard you want to push, if you want to keep pushing or come back to it, if you want to let it go and try again maybe another time, or let it go completely. Like, all of these decisions are being made in real time and constantly, I believe, anyway. If you're doing your job well, then there are multiple conversations going on at the same time, but only one that can be heard by the audience. So that is a constant recalibrating and reassessing what moment you're in, what needs to happen next, how you can direct this in the way that you want it to go, how you can get what you came for, and if there's more there to get than maybe even you came for. Like, all of these things you have to be assessing in real time, meanwhile balancing what the other person is perceiving and how engaged they are with you. You can't be spaced out trying to figure out all this shit while they're just talking. It's all this is happening at once. And so, each single interview and each question is different. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the moment. And if you're too lost in your own agenda, you'll miss the moment. And that's why when you asked me if I had missed a question with Don Charles, I honestly don't think so, but I was curious if you thought maybe I had. And then I realized that I had asked so many of the right questions that even the questions you thought I had missed, I had asked, because I really did everything right.
I was actually going to say, or maybe it was just me not paying attention, but you blew your own trumpet, so, you know what I mean?
I didn't want to,
You know what I
I
mean?
didn't want to come to that for you.
No.
Maybe after the interview, you'd play this moment back and be like, you know what? Maybe it was me.
Hey, listen, I can accept. I can accept. What was interesting, though, about that moment is he was pissed in the first instant, but then he gave you an answer that, and I think I gave this answer to somebody the other day when we were critiquing when people don't make weight, that after years and years of making weight, it just becomes difficult. But I think
it's always difficult, I would imagine. If it's not hard making weight, then you're probably giving your opponent an advantage. Because one thing I don't like about this whole weight thing with boxing and the weigh-in day before the fight is that people aren't really fighting at their weight, right? So you fight at the weight you can get down to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you accept a fight, I should say, at the weight you get down to, and then you fight at the weight you can get up to. I don't know that is a great scenario for competition or for the fighters, but that's the way it's done.
Yeah, I found out you had a podcast.
Now, you must be thinking of Till This Day.
To this day? Yeah.
So that podcast I created in the middle of COVID, actually. And I realized while I didn't have boxing available to me because it wasn't happening, that there was more to my passion for this sport than just who's fighting who in the ring and who's won on the most recent Saturday night. But what I like to believe is part of why my interviews are unique is because I'm getting at the fight inside the fighter themselves, beyond who the opponent is that they're facing, the internal struggle that they have to overcome, the person that has to climb through the ropes before the first bell rings has already won many, many battles. And so when the boxers weren't available to me, I looked around and saw that there were a lot of accomplished people that were available to me, that I was blessed to be friends with in an environment that Dave Chappelle created in Yellow Springs, Ohio, where you wouldn't expect for people to convene during a pandemic, but he made it possible, where there were accomplished people from all walks of life at the top of their game, A-list in their pursuit. And a lot of them were my personal friends that I could ask questions of, and decided that I needed to understand the fight in them, and that realization that you don't have to be a boxer to be a fighter, and that all these fighters really are accomplishing something as marvelous and awe-inspiring as what I've been taken with by boxers. These men and women are doing something exceptional and having to win a fight in their lives, against themselves sometimes, or circumstances, insecurities, even real physical adversaries sometimes, to accomplish what they have accomplished. And so I started to talk to them about that fight, and I realized it's not so different than the combat athlete.
When you talk about people's personal fight, what have you had to fight against in your life? What's been your biggest fight?
Ambition. I just want to constantly do better by my own definition, which may not be the shared definition of the field or the company that I'm working in. I have a very distinct view of how things should be, what that requires, and then I work towards that, which is not necessarily the stated definition of success by the outward world. So I am ambitious to want to be the most impactful person, or have the top spot, or have the most visibility, or have the most power in any, given pursuit, but my definition of such may not match what the field that I'm in rewards. So do I ask that tough question of Rodriguez, or the countless tough questions I've asked in the past, or challenged the powers that be, and not get the presenting job, or not get the advantage that other journalists will have by not asking that question, and the access? When they see me coming and they know it's going to be a tough interview, or I'm going to ask the uncomfortable question, or I won't go along with the company line, or I'm not as easily influenced by what I know the promoter or network want, or the fighter even, that's a hindrance to my elevation or promotion and assistance from others to get promoted or elevated, but also it meets the standard that I set for the field. And so that tug of war is a constant opponent. Do I go with what I believe is right based on the metric that I set, or do I conform to the metrics set by the industry?
I'm happy and grateful and slightly probably naive that to feel that can happen and work in this environment. And so it's good to hear that someone else is grappling with it. It just seems to me that in terms of authenticity, you're not going to cross over a certain barrier.
Right, but if I don't cross over a certain barrier, do I not a sin beyond a certain ceiling.
So let me ask you this. Somebody said to me, and I laughed, but it's they said that I've got too many morals to be successful.
It depends on how you define success and how they define it and what morals they're talking about. You know what I mean? I understand the context in a sense of, the general nature of that statement, but it's the devil and God are in the details.
I'm guessing it's a constant struggle, given how ambitious you have said you are, to navigate that whole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, of course you can be successful. It entirely depends on how you define that, though, and what you are willing to trade away for maybe a success defined by others. Or your own. Like, listen, it is a complicated question that I think every individual has to answer for themselves. And then you hope that the standards you set at the outset you can maintain. But as pressures mount and opportunities come and go, you may make different calculations than you would have made in the beginning.
Did you ever sit and think, there is a ceiling that I want to reach versus ambition, and knowing that you will have to do certain things, jump through certain hoops? Are you okay at the level that you're at? Or is that something that you're satisfied with?
No, clearly not. There's no satisfaction. I mean, I am the consummate Mick Jagger. I can't get no satisfaction. That's part of the struggle. And wherever I ascend to, I'm always looking beyond that point as to what more could be attained and what more influence I could have. So I don't know, maybe that's a blessing and a curse. But what I'm willing to do to get it, or how long I'm willing to wait if I want to do it my way, is what I'm constantly assessing and reassessing and analyzing the validity and logic of.
First and foremost, thank you very much for inviting me into your space. If it was me, because I don't invite people into my space unless it's a vibe thing. Do you know what I'm saying? So I really appreciate that. I appreciate you giving me your time, the knowledge, sharing some stories. Literally, I know there's more in there. I could have,
Yeah,
pulled...
we're going to talk about Cardi B next.
Cardi
That's
B.
the next interview.
Yeah, we can mix it up. But yeah, I really appreciate it, and thanks ever so much for giving me your time.
And you forgot, shout out to Meghan Markle, our favorite of
Anyway, cut!
our most adorable royal.
The camera's just running out.
No, listen, you came and you did your thing. You have a professional setup. You took the job seriously, not just this time, whatever I see you covering fights, and I'm happy to have you in the industry. This is one of the things that is most important to being successful, is being consistent and being prepared. And you were consistent in asking to have this interview. When the moment arrived, you were prepared, and I enjoyed it. What else do you want? That's
I want you.
job.
I just want you to agree with me on the Meghan Markle situation. That me and you will be good. Me and you will be good.
Now that you have come over to my way of thinking, thoroughly agree.
No, bless her. Bless her.
Bless her and bless this great nation.